Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Zara and today I'm going to be talking about The Look of a King by Tom Dumbrell. This is the first book in the Pillars of Peace trilogy, I think. There are 2 books out currently and I think Tom is in the process of writing the 3rd book. I could be wrong, it might be a duology, but I couldn't find any information about whether it was a trilogy or not. And I haven't read the 2nd book yet, so I don't know how it ends. But this is essentially a story following 2 young men. One who is just kind of like your average guy, not particularly strong at fighting, but is, quite smart and quite adept at working his way out of situations. And then you follow another character who is a prince. He is next in line for the throne. He's a complete asshole. Nobody really likes him. He's not very nice. He's just like a bit of a douchebag. This is a story where we follow both characters at the start. It is very much a kind of coming of age story. And it does read a little younger compared to some of the other fantasy that I read. I mean, I generally read dark fantasy or grimdark, but it's definitely read a little bit younger for me, which was fine because it's what I needed and it's what I was expecting when I read the book. You follow Augustus and Cyrus. So Augustus is the prince and Cyrus is the kind of the other guy. Something happens in the story that makes you then follow Cyrus predominantly for the rest of the book. And Cyrus is a really likable character. He is kind of, going through a lot of change. He is learning how to become more comfortable in himself and how to get more confidence. And I love books about characters like that because I feel like, everyone goes through that at some point in their life. I mean, I definitely did. Cyrus was really relatable and I loved the way that he interacted with other characters in the book. I also liked the way that the book ended and I also liked the role that he played in that ending, if that makes sense. And it was just really satisfying and I'm really excited to read the 2nd book because I think that's going to really kick off with a bang. The plot is an interesting one because this is I think it's a very plot driven book. The pacing is fantastic. I read this book in like a day or 2. And the pacing is great. Like you start off with a bang pretty much from page 1 and then it's just bang, 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 bang throughout the whole book. There is always something happening, but it never felt forced. It never felt like it was happening for shock value. And I just really enjoyed the way that the book progressed and the way that the characters progressed, especially Cyrus. I thought it was going to be like a nice, easy read. It was an easy read in the sense that getting through the book was very quick for me. But it was I was like, oh my God, there's so much going on. It's insane. Kind of reminded me of John Gwyn a little bit in that regard, with Wrath, when things are just happening all the time. It reminded me of that quite a lot and I loved it. I think one of the other things that I really liked was the kind of political context of the world. We get a little bit of politics in the book. And this is one of the things that I'd love to see in the next book. And I have a feeling we'll get it, is broader context outside of the main kind of kingdom that we're in. So we're in kind of a very enclosed environment for the 1st book, which makes sense because the direction that the book is going in. But I'm really excited to see in book 2 how that becomes richer and seeing other kingdoms and how they're different to the kingdom that we're in book 1. But I really enjoyed that we got a taste of that and I just wanted more of it. So I really hope we get that in book 2 and if there is a book 3 being written, then in book 3. And then the last thing I'll mention that I really liked is that even though I think Tom was really influenced by fantasy authors, there's not actually any magic in this book. And I really liked that. I don't think it needs it. And I also think that, I like stories. I love coming of age stories where it's kind of rags to riches. And that's kind of what this is. And it didn't need the fantasy. I feel like if there had been fantasy in it, it would have added in a layer of complexity that it didn't need. So I really rate the fact that Tom made that decision not to do that, especially not just for the sake of it, because I feel like sometimes fantasy can feel like a little bit forced, the magic can feel a bit forced and it doesn't really need to be there. But I never felt that once in this book and I really enjoyed it. I'll be curious to see if fantasy comes in later in books 2 and 3. I'm not against it, but I think the way that he did it in book 1 was just fantastic. So that's a very kind of brief summary of some of the things that I really liked about it. And also some of my very small gripes. I think the last gripe that I will mention is that the story did feel a little bit predictable towards the end. I kind of guessed certain things, but I mean, for me, that's not a deal breaker. I don't need to be kept on my toes every single minute of every single day. I have this really strong sense that book 2 is just going to be even crazier and more developed. I'm very excited to pick up book 2. I've actually added it to my list to buy in my next bookshop. So I'm going to try and like fit it in maybe for January or February, but we'll see. But I have a feeling it's going to become a story that is going to just become richer and richer, and I can't wait to see how it develops. Overall, I ended up giving this book a 4/4.25, which I think is really solid, especially for a debut. So Tom, just to give you a bit of context on Tom, from what I understand, Tom wrote both books during quarantine in the UK. He was made redundant from his job in the travel industry, which we all know travel industry was one of the most impacted industries during COVID. He's a big lover of fantasy books, and so he decided to write a story that brought together all of his kind of favorite things about fantasy. You can definitely see that in the book. You can definitely see influences from, like, you know, there's some like Tolkien-esque things in there that I really liked. I mean, I've only read The Hobbit, so take that with a pinch of salt, but you can definitely see that this is a fantasy lover, and he's written a book for other fantasy lovers, which I really loved. And so, yeah, I gave it a 4/4.25, which I think that's probably one of the highest ratings that I've ever given to a debut. I'm really impressed, and I'm very excited to see what else this author writes. I will be reading the second book, like I said, soon, and I will definitely do a review of that once I've read it. But strongly recommend it. I think if you're looking for a book that is maybe a little bit lighter, but there's still some dark themes, but it's a little bit lighter on the palette, and you just want like a coming of age story, like a really solid coming of age story where like the pacing is fantastic and there's not too much world building and too much context, this is the book for you. I read it in between some really heavy stuff that I was reading, and it was perfect, and I will do that for the second book as well, because I think it's just really palatable and really easy to get through, and it's really solid. I think it's a really solid choice to pick up. I've not seen anyone talk about this book, so if you've read it, let me know and let's chat about it. If you have any questions about it and you're interested in it, let me know as well, because I would be happy to answer them. Please give this video a thumbs up. I will see you all in the next video as usual. I hope you all have a fantastic day. Stay safe, and I will speak to you soon. Bye.